All right, welcome in Tuesday. It is Section 1904. I'm Darren Smith. He's John Gennaro. And I did spend 3+ hours watching the Padres and Diamondbacks on Monday night. I try to commit to a couple of these a week where I say, I'm going to watch baseball uninterrupted for whatever length of time it's required. And it seems like every time that I commit to this, it's at least a 3-hour baseball game. I don't know why, but I did watch all of it last night. We'll talk about that, not to do the post-game thing, but we will spend some time talking about you, Darvish, and Manny Machado, and other stuff that I jotted down in my notes. By the end of this game, I don't know that it was the most exciting game. It had a couple of moments, but by the end of this game, I found myself researching the shirt sponsor of the Arizona Diamondbacks. So if anybody needs any information on Avnet Technologies, I'm your guy. John, how we doing?
We're doing okay. I am interested in Avnet Technologies. We can get into that in a second. Foremost, because I'm not going to stop beating myself up about this, but I might as well do it publicly because not everyone is on our Discord channel or checking it regularly. Twice in the last week, we have played audio during the recording that when I then published the podcast, the audio we played was missing. There's a very stupid technical reason for this. I'm aware of it. It won't happen again. If you get to that part of a podcast and it's not working, just delete it off your phone and re-download it. I'm sure I fixed it by then and it should be working, but lost a little sleep over that last night, Darren. Felt really bad for the people who wanted to hear AJ Preller's very excited talk about adding multiple bats to the Padres, which is missing for some people from the middle of our podcast.
Yeah, I felt you on that one as well. Ugh. And I found myself kicking myself a little later in the day, like, God, how did we not do this?
I know.
Anyhow, it's not a one-man operation. It's not a you. Nobody points fingers here. It's us. It's a we thing. But thank you, because a member of our community pointed this out on Discord and said, hey, just so you guys know, your AJ Preller audio isn't firing. So it was actually a quick fix.
Yeah.
And John had many other things to do yesterday. John was the star of the Emo Brown podcast. So he had other things on his mind. How did that go? That's usually, speaking of lengthy endeavors, that's usually a lengthy endeavor. I mentioned 3+ hours for a baseball game.
Yeah.
Usually these Emo Brown podcasts are like 3+ hours as well.
I thought that's what it was going to be. And so I kind of prepared myself and cleared this time off my schedule because I thought it was going to be a long thing. And it was me. It was Steve-O, it was BJ, it was Lozano. And I wasn't even keeping track, but I think we chatted for about an hour. And then they were like, all right, John, thanks so much. And that was the end. And I was like, whoa, I was expecting more, but cool. And then what I found out, and I got criticized for this because I called them out on the podcast, is that they record these things in advance. So we started Monday morning, and Steve was like, welcome to the midweek show. I'm like, midweek? It's Monday morning. Like, shut up. And so then after I left, they went back in and recorded an additional podcast, and then I think they maybe had plans to record a third one. So I think the 3 hours, at least yesterday, was like split up over multiple shows. But the hour that we had was a lot of fun. As per usual, they made fun of your Spanish for being too good. That you pronounce everything exactly, and I said, well, you know, he's still new to this. He's not comfortable as comfortable as you guys speak, and they're like, it's uncomfortable for everyone when he does it. But you know, they hassled me, they hassled you, as they do on that show, and they talked a lot about how much they really like Section 1904 and how much they love having you back on a daily show, filling that midday void for them. So it was good. It was a great time.
So wait a second here. Let me make sure I understand this.
Yep.
So I was mocked because when it is that I feel comfortable enough to speak Spanish on any sort of platform, that it actually is good. Too good. Okay. Because I did wonder, and I did send Steve a text privately, whether or not the subject of Club America came up. because Steve pointed out that you and I were not exactly pronouncing the same thing there.
No.
When it was that SDFC hosted Club America at Snapdragon Stadium, he's like, yeah, you all were talking about two different teams from what I was able to listen to. So I wasn't sure. When you go into the studio, anybody that's ever been invited to the Emo Brown podcast, anybody that's ever listened to the Emo Brown podcast or watched the Emo Brown podcast, you are essentially like entering the octagon. You are agreeing that there will be like no rules whatsoever. Anything is fair game. You will be mocked. It's amazing. I don't know if you went through this. Like I stress about what I'm going to wear when I go on the Emo Brown podcast, just because I feel like it might come up and I might be mocked for that. So,
Yeah, well,
it is something that you really have to consider before you go, oh yeah, okay. Now it doesn't look like they give a shit what they wear. Obviously, these guys barely, I don't know that anybody on that show has even showered the times that I've done it, but I'm always like, yeah, I got to figure this out. Because I'm walking into that lion's den. I have to be prepared.
They did not criticize my clothing, although they could have and probably should have, because I was in a rush. The podcast yesterday for you and I went a little later than we thought. And so I rushed to get it edited, missing that piece of audio, of course, and published. And then I just ran out the door wearing basically exactly what I'm wearing now. And was completely unshowered. I'm still unshowered. It's probably reeks in here. Ugh. And I just ran out the door, and I ran there, and I showed up like 30 minutes late. But I told Steve-O, I was like, yeah, I know you said 11:30. I'll be there closer to 12, but I assumed you meant 12 anyway. And he just wrote back, okay. And I'm like, oh no, like Steve usually has a joke. So because there was no joke, I'm like, oh, is he actually mad? And I showed up at 12:05 and Steve wasn't even there yet. So I was like, all right, cool, I nailed this.
No, the official time zone of the Emo Brown podcast is Mexican time.
Yeah.
Like they take that very, very literally.
Yes.
So
yeah, but it was fun.
Good. Well, I look forward to that. Where there's sports takes, because they're into takes.
We didn't
on the
get
Emo Brown podcast.
deep into sports takes. It was more like sports media takes, sports radio takes. I did rat you out a little bit because they were like, is Darren ever going to write anything? Darren should write something. And I was like, I've been trying to get Darren to write something since the 1090 days. And I'm like, it's going to happen at some point. He's going to write something. And then they pull up the website and they're like, all of these things say, buy John Gennaro, buy John Gennaro. I'm like, we're working on it. But no, there wasn't a lot of sports takes. They did say they want to get into the Padres, and it never really happened because we spent the whole time talking about how 1090 and our friendship turned into Section 1904, and then kind of what we envisioned this thing growing into. And they were really interested.
All right. Well, did they have any new Padres takes? You said you didn't really get into it. I feel like today's Padre takes are not that different from yesterday's Padre takes. So, and I don't know if today's podcast takes are any different than yesterday's or the week before's. So I don't know. I mean, there's some new names. There's some new things to talk about. Darvish came back and threw 63 pitches, I think it was. 63 pitches and spoke afterwards. I did. That is linked, by the way, for those that are tuning in. I think we might still be in the free preview window. I'm not sure. But if we are, this is Section 1904. Not only do you get a podcast, but you get access to a website. You get access to the Front Row Seat, which is a daily email that's delivered right there to your inbox, which links many of the top stories, including today. I noticed that you linked Darvish and his post-game session via Marty Caswell. So shout out to Marty. By the way, did you notice that has his own, maybe this has been around forever and I just haven't noticed it, but that he has his own post-game backdrop? Did you notice that?
No, I was laser focused on the fact that he still uses a translator, even though his English is really good.
Kind of uses the translator
when he wants to. Yeah, I was laser focused on that. Like, why? What is he doing? I was like, is this?
But he understands everything.
Yeah,
he understands everything because all the questions are asked to Darvish, and he doesn't wait for the translator to translate the question. He just nods and he understands what it is that AC's asking him, or what Dennis Lin or Marty or whomever is asking. He understands, and then he answers the question in Japanese. And yeah, obviously this is something where he just wants to be thorough. He doesn't want anything to be misunderstood or misconstrued.
Do you think that's
and
what
then
it
the
is?
Translator will give out the answer in English. And you could tell, like, Darvish is definitely eyeballing the translator, like, you better make sure that you're getting this right. It is a really interesting thing to watch, I will say. But you could tell. I've seen him do English language interviews,
right.
So it's not like he can't. But I appreciate the fact that he just wants to make sure that everything is getting out there and it's as accurate as can possibly be. But yeah, the backdrop, it had a sponsor on it, John, because this is what I'm noticing.
Who
these
is the
days.
sponsor?
Kinoshita. I've tried looking this up. Apparently, this is a partnership with the Dodgers. I don't know. I can't find any connection to the Padres. I can't find any. And
the Dodgers and Darvish written into the contract.
According to the AI overview on Google, Kenosha Group is a Japanese holding company involved in various industries. While there isn't any evidence of a direct sponsorship with Kenosha Group and Yu Darvish as an individual player, they do have a multi-year partnership with the LA Dodgers. Anyway, I don't know. This really isn't important. This is just my mind wandering during some of this. But that is interesting that he has his own backdrop. Other players don't have that. Manny still has the MLS expansion scarf hanging.
Yeah, why is the scarf? Like you told me he had the SDFC scarf behind him, and then I was like, that's not an SDFC scarf. That's the expansion scarf. There's like no colors. It doesn't say San Diego FC. It says like MLS San Diego or something. I'm like, get a new one, buddy.
I know.
Enjoy the branding.
I mean, I shouldn't. I don't want to. Does it bother me? I don't know. Do I feel like there's an opportunity here to upgrade that scarf? I do.
Yeah.
I definitely do. But if that's what makes him happy, who am I to argue with this? Where do you want to start, Darvish or Manny Machado?
Hold on. I think maybe I figured out this Darvish thing. There's an article. I can't read this while I'm talking. It seems like when he was with the Cubs, Yu Darvish made a deal with this Kenosha Group to start some sort of baseball academy back in Japan. So that seems to be his separate thing. It actually has nothing to do with the Dodgers.
But they do have a multi-year partnership with the Dodgers. So he has his own sponsorship that he brings with him into the clubhouse.
Yeah.
And he okay. Well, good. If it's going to a good cause, then I'm all for it. This is the intended, this is what's intended when you have this backdrop is to pique the curiosity of people like myself, by the way. So I'm glad that we could shed a little bit of light on this. The thing that stood out to me from what he actually said, other than the mechanics of going through the Q&A with the translator, which is not a new thing.
No.
He said that when he talked about his slider that, at least according to Baseball Savant, he threw 13 times last night, 13 of his 63 pitches, that he was worried. He was happiest with the slider because he was worried about the stress on his elbow. And, that to me says, maybe there's still a little bit in the back of his mind concern about whatever it is that's gone on in the elbow. But that he was pleased that he was able to throw it, and he hadn't felt it, at least as is the time that he was speaking to the press after the game. But that's the one thing that stood out to me. Everything else, he seemed like he was okay. He said his velocity, which Baseball Savant had as high as 95.9, that the velocity, it told him, his body was telling him that he can do these things. But he said he went into the game with a little bit of concern about the slider and what it would mean to the elbow. Because these aren't things that you could replicate in a simulated game. These aren't things that you can replicate in a bullpen session. You can only do it in a big league game. And that he felt pretty good about the way the elbow, as of last night, felt coming out of it. That's what stood out to me. I know we can go through the box score and we can say whatever. But to get him back out there, and see him resemble, I thought, Yu Darvish, to me, was a step in the right direction, I suppose.
To me, it looked like what I saw when Yu Darvish pitched in El Paso or wherever that was a month or two ago, where he looked like the same old Yu Darvish. He also looked like he just wasn't sharp because he didn't have, months of spring training to build up that sharpness and whatever. And so he got himself in some tough situations. There was some pitches that he obviously thought were going to catch the strike zone and they didn't. Everything was off by a little bit. But for a guy throwing his first start with no rehab start really in months, I think he was about as good as you could imagine. And the sweeper, did that used to be called the slurve? Because there didn't used to be sweepers, and now there's no slurves, and I feel like one just replaced the other. But
everything's a sweeper now.
I didn't know if it was a sweeper or a slider or what. But that pitch, which Baseball Savant also calls a sweeper, was incredible. That pitch was just unhittable last night. And for you to walk in, basically off the bench with an unhittable pitch, that was a great sign. And then the velocity. I was just watching the velocity, and I was watching it inning to inning, especially I think one of those innings was kind of a longish inning for him to sit in the dugout. I was waiting to see, that's usually the telltale sign, right? You sit in the dugout for a while, you come back up, and all of a sudden your velocity's dropped to 3 miles an hour or whatever on your fastball. And I didn't see that. As a matter of fact, there was rumors that his velocity going into this were going to be low, and he was 95, 96. I don't know if I saw anything higher than 96. Baseball Savant has the average is 95.1 on his four-seamer. Last year was 94.1. So I didn't see anything that concerned me. He looked like Darvish, and I'm hopeful that he just gets sharper as the season goes along. And look, I watched the entire game last night too, and going into it, I sold my wife on watching it because she's a huge Darvish fan. And I was not only telling her, like, Darvish is back, I was like, this one game might literally mean the difference between buying or selling for the Padres. I was like, if Darvish comes out and he's so bad that they're just like, whoops, like, we can't put him out there again, like, then the season's essentially done. Their playoff hopes, their championship hopes are crushed. I was like, if he comes out and he looks good, I was like, he didn't even need to look great. He just needs to look good. Then they're like, okay, he's going to get sharper. He's going to get better. We have, a 1 or 2 or 3 level starting pitcher added to this rotation that desperately needs it. Maybe we'll be okay. Maybe all we really need is to add a left fielder and a catcher and we'll be fine. And at the end, when he's walking off, my wife turned to me and she was like, was that good? I was like, yeah, that was good. I didn't think it was amazing, but I thought it was good. And that to me was, it's one game is one game, especially in July, but I felt like that was an important game for the Padres, and they lost, and the offense sucked, and a big reason for that is the bottom of the lineup has just giant holes in it where you're bunting with your catcher at the 9 hole because you think that's the best option for your offense, but no, Darvish showed me everything that I could have hoped for last night, I think.
Yeah, Savant had him throwing 8 different types of pitches. Curveballs, 14 curveballs, 11 sweepers, 14 sliders, 9 sinkers, 5 splitters, 5 four-seam fastballs, 4 cutters, and a knuckle curve for good measure. So, 8 different types of pitches on his first game back is just like, I just think it's so fascinating how they even communicate between the catcher and the pitcher when you have this many pitches.
Yeah, they only have a certain number of buttons on that thing.
I know. Just like catchers have so many fingers and like, how do you do all this sort of stuff? By the way, a good tidbit from Kevin Acee.
Yeah.
That Maldonado and Darvish were born on the same exact day. They're the same exact age, and they're the oldest battery in the history of Major League Baseball. Nice little tidbit there from the Ace Man.
I saw someone.
Good job out of you.
Someone posted that same thing last night on Blue Sky, but not that they were the oldest battery. That they were it was like the 8th or the 13th time in like MLB history that a pitcher had thrown to a catcher with the same birth date as them. But I was unsure if that included year or not. And so I'm glad that AC cleaned that up and added a little bit to it.
Yeah. So is it encouraging? I guess. I guess we'll wait and see. If he's standing out there in another 5 days, then, and it looks a little bit better, then I'm with you with 3 weeks to go before the trade deadline. Then maybe there's one thing here you feel like you can maybe scratch off the list. I just, again, the interesting line from him when I could actually, not be distracted by everything else. When he said that about the slider, I was like, oh, so he went into this wondering what his elbow was going to feel like throwing sliders. And he threw 14 of them, which is as many pitches as he's thrown of any of his other types of pitches that he threw last night. So, it must have felt good enough that he wanted to give it a little bit of a test out there. So, so that was good. That was good. And like you said, the bottom of the lineup, and they, Mike Schultz continues to cry out for help during these games when he's pinch hitting one catcher for another and bunting down 3, all this sort of stuff. Yeah, but still, I feel like every 2-3 times a week, either somebody writes or somewhere I hear, or somebody on social media, somebody in local media says something about, Fernando Tatis will do something that is amongst the most mundane things that you can do all in baseball. And somebody go, well, is this it? Is this about when the old Fernando Tatis Jr. is going to come back? No, it doesn't feel that way. Had a couple of walks last night. Okay, that's fine, but went 0 for 3, I think. So I don't. Are we supposed to believe that the next thing that he does that feels kind of routine is going to be the thing that's going to turn this whole thing? I don't know. Jackson Merrill got snake bit a little bit. No pun intended on that one. Sorry. Apologies. Edit that out. No. He hit that about as well as you could hit it. Probably is a home run in a lot of ballparks, but not this ballpark. And that's not the way this ballpark plays. So he takes advantage of it defensively when he's running around in the outfield. Great defensive play. And the Diamondbacks in their boring jerseys walked away with the win last night.
That is, they are pretty boring jerseys. Although
that is the worst. Tell me if that is the worst jersey in baseball.
You know what?
It just like simply says Arizona across the front. There's no font. There's nothing. No personality.
I know.
Nothing.
I actually, I'm a big fan of like players trying to jazz up a boring uniform with their accessories. A big fan of when the Seattle Seahawks players have like that neon green thing going on. But like even I was a little offended by having to look at Josh Naylor last night with his like bright green sleeve, his bright green shoes, his bright green like a shin guard mixed with the just gray and black and red boring jersey. It was just it was abusing the senses. Can I tap in on your Tatis thing real quick?
Sure.
So I have a theory on Fernando Tatis Jr. And it's tied into what we were talking about yesterday with Eric Gomez, that I'm seeing these quotes from Tatis where he just seems like he's taking almost a more mature stance about where things are right now. And I haven't seen him connect on a ball with like Fernando Tatis Jr. like power, where he just hits it and you're like, that one's fucking gone. Drop the bat, whatever. I haven't seen him do something like that in a very long time. Like, I know he's even had some home runs, but they have felt like, you know, a line drive that he just kind of ran into. He read the ball right or whatever. They didn't seem like the ones where he just crushes it. It seems like that power is missing from his swing for whatever reason. And it was a couple weeks ago that I was like, you know, he's still a good player. Even without the power, he's still a really good player. And then he started talking about himself like, yeah, I don't have the power, but I'm doing everything else, right? I'm getting on base. I'm playing defense. I'm stealing bases. And if you look at his splits, like in May, he was dog shit. He played 26 games in May. He hit 184. His on-base percentage was 257. In June, he was better. He hit 235, but his on-base percentage was 370. 370, Darren. And in July, he is hitting 273 through 6 games with an on-base percentage of 448. He has an OPS of almost 860, which is really good, and he's done it with 0 home runs. And it's almost like Fernando Tatis has willed himself into a leadoff hitter. Like, he's on base all the time. He's a terror on base. He's making good contact. He's not striking out. He's not swinging at bad pitches. He just doesn't have the power anymore. And I think everyone's waiting for that power to come around. But if you, like Fernando Tatis seems to be doing, just go like, hey, man, just play your game and the power will show up if you hit the sweet spot the right way. Like, this is a good version of Fernando Tatis Jr. It's just not the MVP level version of Fernando Tatis Jr. But he's playing good baseball right now without having like any power in his swing whatsoever. On the other side of things, I feel like Gavin Sheets is starting to fall apart.
Okay, but that's not what they paid Fernando Tatis Jr. to do.
That's true.
Is just become some knockoff version of a player who is serviceable. And I am not saying that his salary. I think everybody would agree. Is this about right for his salary? Yeah, I guess. But this is not exactly what the plan was for him. It just feels very underwhelming. You could say it all you want, and I'm not trying to be a hater here and point out what everybody else has pointed out, that he's only hit a couple of home runs. But when's the last thing that he did? You're pointing all this sort of stuff out, and I go, okay, well, like, give me the moment that stands out to you from the last 6 weeks of Fernando Tatis Jr. Like, has he provided one? Because that's what this guy's career has been all about up until this point. Is putting up numbers and statistics and OPS and home runs and being in MVP races and an all-star and all that sort of stuff, which he is. But, the flip side of it is, like you remember things. You don't get on the cover of MLB The Show just because you're putting up better numbers than people might realize if they're watching it every day.
Yeah.
You get on MLB The Show's cover because you're doing things, that people find irresistible in the sport.
Well, do you need to hit home runs? Do you need to hit home runs to be a superstar?
Do you need to do anything memorable? I think so.
I mean, yes, for sure. And I think he's had some.
I mean, am I being unfair here? Like, has he done a memorable thing in the last, however, use whatever arbitrary timeline you want to use. But has he done anything? I never remember he had a home run, but they were down like 9-2 or something.
No, that was over a week ago. That was in June. He had 2 home runs in June. I mean, he doesn't have a ton of. I mean, Oh wait,
and it's fine. I mean, it's not saying he's a bad player and you should be excommunicated, or shot into the side.
Right.
It's just like, I don't know. Yeah, like he had an opportunity, and I'm sitting there last night after the bunting when there's runners on second and third, and I'm like, okay, like this could be a moment.
Yeah.
Don't tell me about a mundane thing that he's doing, a very routine thing, especially by his standards, as evidence that he's coming out of something. I want to see the moment. Like I want to see him standing there talking to the giant Bob Scanlon, having people rip his shirt off and dump Gatorade over him, because that's the guy that I think everybody's waiting to return, not the guy who's kind of quietly turning himself into this very solid player. Like those are great. Those are good things, but he's a moments guy. I mean, Steph Curry's a great player. I want to see Steph bomb it from 45 feet. I don't need Steph to just be clinical on the layup line.
If Steph Curry goes into a cold streak and he misses 10 threes in a row, do you want him to keep shooting, or do you want him to start feeding his teammates?
Absolutely.
Would you rather Tatis be
That's the Kobe Bryant talk. That's a loser.
I know. That's a loser because he stopped shooting. That's one of my favorite Kobe Bryant lines of all time. But would you rather Tatis be swinging for the fences and striking out and hitting warning track things, or would you rather him be walking and getting on base and trying to score runs?
Yeah, I'm not knocking him for being a good player. I miss the other guy.
I thought about this.
And I don't think I'm alone.
I thought about this last night, and in my head, I was like, there's a Juan Soto parallel to make here, especially Juan Soto's time in with the Padres. I was like, that I feel totally uncomfortable making, where people were like, wait, I thought we were getting this superstar. All this guy does is walk a lot. And it's like, well, yeah, those are valuable at bats. It's like, I don't care. I want moments. Give me a Juan Soto moment. And it's like,
but that wasn't understanding what Soto did. I know. It's not like Soto. If you were expecting Soto to come in and be, somebody
Fernando
along
Tatis
those
Jr.
lines, that's not what you are watching him.
Yeah.
We've watched Fernando Tatis Jr.
I know.
You're admitting this is a different Fernando Tatis Jr. And if that's the way it is, then we all just have to accept it and learn to live with the new version of him, which will still be good. But I don't think I'm alone in saying, like, I'm not sure what it is that everybody's telling me when they're trying to suggest to me that he's about to return. Maybe this is evidence that he's about to return.
Yeah, I'm
and
not saying that.
I don't know, man. I don't need him grounding out to second base with the game on the line. That used to put that one on the top of the Western Metal Supply Company building.
Yeah.
And he's not doing that.
So 29 games in April and March, he hit 8 home runs. 26 games in May, he hit 5 home runs. 27 games in June, he hit 2 home runs. What would you do the over-under for July? He's already played 6 games. There's probably about 20 more. Actually, no, there's the All-Star break, so there's probably like 15 more. He's got 0 now. If I put
4?
If I say 2.5, you're taking the over?
Yeah, probably. I don't have the schedule, but yeah, I mean, but again, I'm falling victim to this as well, because I naively expect, at some point last night, like I said, second and third, I'm like, this, I'm saying this, sitting there saying it myself. I'm not just trying to say this publicly so I can get run out of it. I'm like, yeah, this could be, I remember what Fernando used to do in situations like this. I grounded out the second. Anyway.
Wait,
I don't know.
We didn't talk about Machado.
We are going to talk about Machado. What's interesting is I'm heading out to SDFC today to do a couple of interviews, and one of the interviews I'm going to do is Luca Bambino, and I have a feeling I know the answer, and I shouldn't say this sort of stuff because you never know what kind of answer you're going to get. But Luca Bambino scored his first goal for SDFC, and it came at a loss. And I'm guessing he's not going to be thrilled to talk about it, even though he's 18, and it's his first professional goal. And he should be excited about it. You should be. But I feel like because it came at a loss, and he was involved in the past, the miscommunication, him and CJ.
Yep.
I talked to One Valakari recently about scoring the first goal at Snapdragon. He's like, yeah, we didn't win the game, so I don't really care, And baseball's different, because baseball is a game of these individual accomplishments. And to be fair, Manny did say in his post-game session, he's like, yeah, I wish it would have been in a win.
Yeah.
He did say that early on. It's one of the great things. I used to love going through all the milestones with Trevor Hoffman, because there was no way to talk about Trevor and saves without talking about the team winning. So it was always like an easy thing to talk about. Some guys are like, not always great talking about some sort of individual accomplishment if the team isn't any good, which I think is probably a good thing, mostly a good thing. Yeah. I'm not sure. But 2,000 hits, man. I mean, that's a lot. That is a lot. And I found myself digging around a little bit in his career to find out, when the 1,000th hit came. And of course I should just look at front row seat because somebody will probably do this work for me instead of me scribbling down a bunch of math on my pad that John can see here. But I got his 1,000th hit in 2018 with the Dodgers, 20 games into his Dodger career at Coors Field. And then 945 games later, he gets his 2,000th hit in a Padre uniform. And it's a cool moment. That's a lot. That's as Tim Flannery would say, that's a lot of hits. And you combine that with 356 or 7 home runs. And, it's an amazing career. We could all quibble with different things about different players. But I've always said it, watching this guy play baseball never gets old. Like it never gets old watching Manny Machado play baseball for me, offensively and defensively as well. Like he is just, say what you will about him, his personality, clubhouse. But in terms of just him being a baseball player, like, he is straight out of Central Casting. You want to know what a baseball player looks like for me? Like I hold up Manny Machado as the example.
Yeah, that's. I have my quibbles with Manny as like a leader and a clubhouse guy and all that stuff. But baseball player, no, he is like you said, straight out of Central Casting. He's exactly what you should imagine when it comes to a baseball player. He's tough. He posts. He's always got good stats at the end of the year. I saw they had this little montage on the broadcast about, his career with the Orioles, and then here's him getting his 1,000th hit with the Dodgers, and then here's his career with the Padres, and boom, look, he got number 2,000 with the Padres. And I was dying because I'm one of those guys who's like, when it comes to these, like, hey, 2,000 hits, let's celebrate. And I'm like, was 1,997 not worth celebrating? Like, just because it's a nice round number? And that's where you end up with stuff like this, where it's like, no one celebrates the fact that he has 977 hits with the Baltimore Orioles, but we got to celebrate one of the 73 that he had with the Dodgers because it was a nice round number, right? It's a ton of hits. 2,000 hits in 1,825 career games in 14 years tells me a number of things. He gets at least a hit a game on average, and a bit more than that, and he plays almost every single game every year. Like, that's exactly what you want to be as a baseball player.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, it does feel uniquely baseball. Like there are these other milestone numbers that other players in other sports surpass, and sometimes they're celebrated and sometimes they're not. I guess they're just reminders of, I think even Manny post-game, if you watched it, talked a bit about, realizing how hard it is to get one, and he's right about that. Jesse Agler always points this out, like how few people have actually played the game of baseball, and I think the number is like 22,000.
No, it's our buddy Dylan from Letters to AJ told me this number in a bar. He was like, the amount of people that have ever played in a Major League Baseball game is like 25,000, and there's no MLB ballpark that couldn't fit every single one of them inside of it. And I was like, that's insane. That's not real. And I looked it up. Sure enough, it's real. And now I hear Jesse Agler talk about it. I believe Mud Grant talked about it on the broadcast last night. Like, it is just an insane thing to look at that and be like, wow, I assumed it was a lot more people. And Manny now is in, a very, very small company, probably like one section of that stadium of people that have ever played in Major League Baseball who have reached any of these milestones, 350.
Yeah, Jesse Agler is... I'm sorry. Jesse Agler has had a tweet posted or pinned since June 19th of 2019. Last night, Logan Allen became the 19,522nd player to appear in the majors. That number always blows my mind. You could take every big leaguer ever, and they wouldn't fill half of most stadiums. Heck of a club. Now, I don't know how many more have been added since that in 2019. So you said Dylan gave you like 22, 23,000, somewhere in that range.
25. But
yeah, that's a bad night at Petco Park.
Right, exactly.
That's a bad night at Petco.
Yeah, and like if you would
that's how many guys ever have done it.
If you had asked me to guess every baseball player who's ever played Major League Baseball, how many are there? Before I heard that, it would 500,000 or $500,000 probably. I just assume it's so many. No,
I know. I mean, it does seem for a sport that's been around since the 1800s, it does seem like it's a much smaller number than you're instinctively going to think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Like I always remember that posting and just like, yeah. But hey, it comes in a loss. So, it's baseball. It's the kind of thing that happens and you get back after it. Now, what's acceptable for the remainder of the series? There's 3 more games with the Diamondbacks. I see an awful lot of suggestions here that the Diamondbacks have a decent enough roster that maybe they should be torn apart. And, you should go after one of their pitchers or you should go after one of their hitters. Are they completely out of it? The Padres, the Diamondbacks are closer to the Padres than the Padres are closer to the Dodgers. So, do you think the Diamondbacks are waving the white flag or their boring white uniform? Are they waving the flag of surrender here? Are they going to be torn apart and sold off for pieces? I don't know.
I doubt it.
But I saw some suggestions there that maybe going after one of their pitchers or Josh Naylor or whomever.
Wait, I have a different question. Now that we're in this conversation, and because we just had the Manny conversation, and because things just feel, I mean, again, Manny got his 2000th hit, and like I said, Tatis has been playing better, and Darvish came back and he looked good, but at the end of the night, it was a loss, and the vibes in San Diego were bad, and AJ Preller's contract runs out after next year, and we talked a week or two ago about how there could be a big shakeup trade, either acquiring or not, although acquisition would be difficult with what the Padres have. Here's my question. If the Yankees called you, you're AJ Preller, the Yankees called you and they said, would you be willing to listen about Manny? What would you say?
I mean, I'd say I'd listen to anything, but the likelihood of him waiving a no-trade clause is probably 0.
Really?
I don't see it.
Manny Machado. You don't think Manny?
I don't see it.
You don't think Manny wants to go play in either a bigger market or have a better opportunity to win a World Series ring?
Well, why didn't he? Why didn't he go into free agency then?
Well, he did. He signed with the Padres. Oh, you mean with the extension and all that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm not saying.
He was months away from free agency.
I'm not saying.
It certainly seemed like there were people in the Padres organization who were more than willing to let Manny Machado go into free agency and what he can go out there and find. And there was a team in New York with an awful lot of money to spare, where there's a huge Dominican population, and the Padres were already starting to wonder, would the Mets be interested in Manny Machado?
But when that extension was signed, A, Peter Seidler was still alive, correct?
Yep.
B, there was a lot more concrete hope about what Fernando Tatis Jr. was going to be, reflected in his contract. C, the Padres, I believe, still had a healthy Joe Musgrove, a healthy Yu Darvish, a healthy Blake Snell, who I think was in his Cy Young year. There was a lot of reasons to believe that the Padres, a championship contender, would continue to be a championship contender for a while. Now that Peter's gone and Snell's gone and Darvish is kind of shaky and Musgrove is hurt and Tatis is losing his power, if Manny looked around and someone was like, hey man, I don't know that this is going to be a championship contender in 2 or 3 years. And at that point you might be stuck. But right now the Yankees want you. I don't know. He might be willing to waive it, but if he was willing to waive it, you as the GM would be willing to listen?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'd listen to anybody.
Yeah,
about anybody.
That's the right position.
Yeah, there's nobody I wouldn't listen to. Now, I don't know what it is that they still have. And, again, I don't know that you're speaking hypothetically. You're hypothetically saying that the Yankees are interested in here and willing to absorb that contract, even though when he was a free agent, the Yankees were not willing to spend anywhere close to what the Padres were spending.
Oh, I picked a random team that seems unafraid to spend money at times.
Yeah, I mean, if I felt like this was the direction it was going, and I might be seeking a way out from one of these 3 contracts, and I could talk to these guys and be like, hey, listen, I'm just going to lay this out for you here. These are the positives. It's a different organization. It's going in a different direction. Sure. I'm all ears on that one. Yeah,
it's just in the back of my head yesterday. I was like, his trade value, which in the beginning of the year is like, well, no one wants that contract. I was like, I don't know. Now I'm reading these articles this morning where AJ Cassavell is like, if he just, chugs along for the next 10 years being like even a 70% version of Manny Machado, he's going to reach 3,000 hits and 500 home runs. And I'm like, yeah, sure. I can imagine him doing that. Why not?
Mm-hmm. I remember somebody with the Dodgers, the Dodgers, when they acquired him in 2018, I had a friend that worked there, still works there. And he's like, yeah, we were giving that a test drive just because we wanted to see if it was something that we would be interested in. And trying to think, what year was it? It would have been 2019. I remember that because I broke my collarbone.
2018 was the year that he was on the Dodgers.
Correct, yeah. But the conversation I'm talking about was in 2019.
So he's already on the
I remember it
Padres.
because I had my broken collarbone.
Yeah.
And we were talking about, I was like, well, why didn't you guys want to sign him? And they're like, we just feel like that body is not going to age well. Like, it is not, our guys took a look at him. We popped the hood and we looked at that engine and we're like, yeah, this thing ain't going to age well. I'm wondering, it's 2025 and it still looks like it's going pretty well.
Yeah.
It still looks like it's going pretty well. I don't know what he would have gotten in free agency. And, I will never know what he would have gotten in free agency. He was also coming off an injury, but I wonder, they might have gotten that one wrong. Again, this was somebody who's involved in these kind of conversations. And he's like, yeah, we looked and we're like, yeah, I don't think that thing's going to age real well. And I'm going, I'm not sure, man. 33? I think he just turned 33. And, he's a starting all-star, again, pinch of salt. But
he turned 33 2 days ago.
Yeah, he's a starting third baseman in the all-star game. So, did it take him a little longer to get to 2,000 than it took to get to 1,000? Yeah, sure. It did. Just because I looked this up, it took 880 to get to 1,000. It took 945 to get to 2,000.
That's the benefit of youth for you.
Yeah, and it's a tough part, but yeah, I still think it looks like a good investment. Talk to me in 5 years. Especially, as he's getting into his mid-30s and such. But, if there is slowdown, it has been marginal. It has absolutely been marginal. But what's good for the rest of the series now? I mean, do you have to win the next 3 to have a good series against the Diamondbacks?
I mean, you can't lose the series. You got to at least split.
Then you got the Phillies coming in.
Yeah, it's not getting any easier. They're still playing good teams, and you got to be good to beat good teams. But by the way, I thought that he had hit a home run on that. It was the first pitch after he took like 10 minutes off when he hit the ball into his foot, and there was questions on if he was going to have to leave the game or not. I'm talking about Machado. And then he comes up, first pitch, he hits it to the warning track in center field. I thought it was gone. I was like, what a superhero this guy is sometimes. But
yeah,
still
he
great.
And Schulte were out there yucking it up about that.
I was trying to not. I had thoughts about Schulte in that moment that I'm just going to keep to myself.
I did not see the Schulte post-game press conference.
Me neither.
Well, then we'll just move on.
All
right. Well, I don't know. I feel like a split against the Diamondbacks is going to breathe a little bit of life into the Diamondbacks.
It certainly could.
Again, I don't know enough about them and their boring uniforms, but again, Avnet Technologies won a huge lawsuit, John, like $270 million. In case you were wondering.
I guess I know what they spent on it, or what they spent the money on. A sleeve patch for the Arizona Diamondbacks
on the worst jersey in all of baseball. There can't be a worse one out there, right?
I try not to keep track of the worst ones. I do have in my head a list of my favorites and the best ones of my opinion, but I don't know if I have a good list of the worst ones.
You're not on X these days?
Just managing Section 1904. I nuked my account. I just deleted it because I thought I was never coming back. And then when I was like, is there a way to undo this? And like, no, not really. It's like, that's fine. Grok's a Nazi now anyway.
I was going to ask if you had any preference, since everybody tweeted the same thing at the same time last night about Manny's 2000th hit, and everybody told the same joke when he got his 2001st hit. I just wondered if you had a preference from the press box last night. Like, if you had a pool reporter that you were to follow, who would it be?
What was the joke?
Ace Man?
What was the joke? I missed the joke.
Oh, it's 999 away.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Yeah, probably AC. Like, people bash on AC a lot, but the thing I like, I really do.
I don't think he tweets a lot during the game, though.
Does he?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. The thing I like about AC is that he does occasionally add a little bit of color to his reporting, but for the most part, he's just telling you what's going on and sharing stats to back it up and whatever. He doesn't get over over his skis in terms of adding his own commentary and analysis and all that. He's not like, I'm a baseball expert. He's like, I was here. This is what I saw. And I like that about him. So, yeah, he'd probably be my favorite from that group.
Okay. Totally switching gears.
Let's do it.
The UFC plans to host a fight card on the White House grounds. Now, this story is a couple of days old. This has been confirmed all over the place. And this will be potentially part of 4th of July festivities, July 4th, 2026, when the USA is celebrating its 250th birthday. Trump was quoted, Donald Trump, president, "We are going to have a UFC fight on the grounds of the White House. We have a lot of land there." He's expecting the card to include a fight of 20,000 to 25,000 people. Yes, that is right. That is right. And it says here, this is the quote, every one of our national parks, battlefields, and historic sites are going to have special events in honor of America 250.
Every one of them?
I think we're even going to have it. We're going to have a UFC fight. What do you think of a UFC fight, including 25,000 potential spectators on the grounds of the White House, John?
Sounds like a security problem, Darren. When the vice president...
Oh, don't worry. I'm sure they'll vet all those people, and if you bought the Trump meme coin, you automatically get a front row seat.
I'm sure you do. When the vice president shuts down Adams Avenue for 3 hours to eat some sushi in San Diego, I can't imagine how they would allow 25,000 people onto the grounds of the White House. Like, didn't this happen during the Obama era where like someone snuck onto the grounds of the White House and it was like this whole thing where like they had to like figure out like, how did he get in, blah, blah, blah. And he was still like hundreds of yards away from the White House. He just like got on the other side of the gate somehow. It sounds like a security nightmare. It also like, I know laws don't matter anymore, but it sounds like you're monopolizing any other mixed martial arts faction out of business by doing such a thing. And it's just not, the UFC is not what I think of when I think of America and America's history and America's birth and all of that. Like, you want to do a reenaction of the Revolutionary War? Sure, go for that. But like a UFC fight, like people break things, people get seriously injured, people can die doing that. Like, why are we doing this?
Well, this is his favorite sport. He has been to 2 or 3 different UFC cards since he's been inaugurated.
I know, it's because Dana White like loves him.
Yeah, Dana White, who is stumped for him. You know, so much for the whole idea, by the way, getting lectured about sticking to sports and all this shit. But anyway, that's so far out the window, it's not even worth bringing up.
Yep.
Let's see, Trump. There's a good story written by Kareem Zidane in The Athletic, who runs a really good site on Substack called Sports Politica. Since taking office in January, Trump has attended 2 UFC fights. Most recently attended UFC 316 in June, just hours after signing a memo ordering the deployment of 2,000 National Guard troops to Los Angeles County. He enjoyed a standing ovation from the fans, glowing endorsements from the fighters, one of whom even kneeled before Trump. This is a story that's written about how there's historical precedent for having this kind of event at a state facility. Not facility, but you know what I'm saying, like state ground, official White House kind of places. Which is why Trump's plan to stage a UFC event at the White House makes perfect sense. It's the natural climax of partnership in which the UFC has become the stage for MAGA mythology. It carries shades of fascist Italy under Benito Mussolini, particularly its obsession with masculinity, spectacle, and nationalism.
True.
But with a modern American twist. Fascist Italy used rallies, parades, and sports events to project strength and unity. Sports, especially combat sports, were used as tools to cultivate Mussolini's ideal masculinity and portray Italy as strong and powerful. Similarly, Trump has relied on UFC to project his tough guy image and celebrate his brand of nationalistic masculinity. From name-dropping champions who endorse him to suggesting a tournament that would put UFC fighters against illegal immigrants, Trump has repeatedly found ways to make UFC-style machismo part of his political brand. Like, oh.
Not to mention Kash Patel, who I think runs the FBI, said at some point he wanted to bring the UFC in to help train the FBI agents, or he wanted to stage a tournament between UFC fighters and FBI agents. All just, it's the dumbest shit ever. Can I respond to the very first thing you said about sticking to sports?
I'll just read the last paragraph and then yes. There was once a time where the U.S. could point to the authoritarian pageantry of regimes like Mussolini's Italy and claim at least some moral distance. That line is no longer visible. What was once soft power borrowed from strongman is now being profoundly performed on America's own front lawn. That was, again, Kareem Zidane, who does have his own Substack page and was writing this in The Guardian. But yes, go ahead.
Just because I saw this the other day, I should have grabbed the audio of it. I don't have it, so I'm just going to read it. Bob Costas was being interviewed on like a weekend like political show, and he was asked by the host, does it concern you that we are seeing in some instances politics infused in sports? I would like to read to you Bob Costas' answer to that because I think it's great. Quote, I think that politics inevitably has intersected with sports. Anyone who says that politics has no place in sports has to be abysmally unaware of the history here. Because until fairly recently in our nation's history, sports and some aspects of entertainment have been the only avenues that were broadly, and even then there was a fight, Jackie Robinson didn't come until 1947, that were broadly accessible to people of color, or where someone like Billie Jean King could make a larger statement about women's rights, not just within sports. And to turn your back on that is to wear a blindfold. So when people say stick to sports, I think what they actually mean most often is stick to sports unless you're saying something that I want to hear and I agree with. But if you're saying something that I disagree with that comes from a different perspective, well then you should just shut up and say, there's a ground ball to shortstop. I love that line from Bob Costas because he's right. He's absolutely right. It's part of the reason that I grew up loving sports is because it crystallizes these political moments. It humanizes them with people that we know and we care about and we root for because they're on our team or they're hitting a home run or whatever. And it has really helped the country come to grips with its politics over the years and its rights over the years. And to just say like, hey, I'm here to get away from it all, like, I guess there are some people who feel that way. And sometimes I watch a baseball game because I want to get away from that too. But to just tell people like us, like, hey, I don't want to hear about politics, just stick to sports. Like there are politics in sports. There's a UFC match on the front yard of the White House, Darren.
Right. 25,000 people. I'm like,
How are they going to seat them all?
I don't know.
That's a stadium. Like Snapdragon Stadium seats 30,000?
Yeah, 32,000. Yeah.
I mean, that's a stadium full of people. That's not the front yard of the White House. It's a stadium full of people.
Well, you heard what the man said. There's a lot of land there.
Apparently. He's going to build a stadium.
A lot of ground there. I feel like I need to go back and watch the movie Idiocracy. Have you seen that?
Yes, I've seen it a bunch of times.
Because I feel like the White House was being used, maybe not for UFC, because I don't think UFC was around. But I feel like the White House, did play some role in that movie that made you think, well, that would never happen.
President Camacho was a former wrestler turned president.
Right. Yeah, which is not dissimilar from how we've arrived in this situation here. And like I sort of laugh at the whole idea about, this president's strongman reputation. I'm like, based on what? He's like some silver spoon guy who never really. I mean, what about him exudes any level of toughness
he got shot
that you've
in the
ever
ear,
seen
Darren.
displayed other than his mouth?
He got shot in the ear, Darren. It makes him tough.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, listen, I don't want to get shot in the ear, but still, like, what has he ever done, like in any physical capacity, that makes anybody go, yeah, that's not one you want to mess around with. If I'm in a dark alley, I don't want to come across that guy. I was like, no.
Wins every golf tournament he enters, Darren.
I guess. All right. Well, I have a feeling we'll talk a little bit about tennis this week, too, since we might have two Americans in the semifinals. We already have one, as Fritz has made it into the semis, I see here. All right. Interesting on that.
Keep an eye on that.
You brought it up. I must admit, I also got distracted during this Padre game because I came across this clip that I missed over the weekend. J.D. Vance was eating sushi on Adams Avenue in Normal Heights, and I guess the public became aware of this in this neighborhood, and they were not happy that Adams Avenue got closed down reportedly for 2 to 3 hours while J.D. Vance was eating at a very nice Michelin-rated restaurant that I've not been to, called Soshi, I think. And once people found out that J.D. Vance and his wife were dining there, they showed up, and I must admit, this woman's voice that you're about to hear, you're going to think is really irritating. And I guess I wouldn't want this directed at me, but I couldn't stop laughing at this when I heard it last night.
I hope your Michelin star sushi was worth it with 82 people dead in Texas. Thanks for cutting the National Weather Service. Go to the Hague!
Yeah, and off they go in the caravan. Apparently in town for a little bit of fundraising and speaking engagement. This was totally lost on me. I had no knowledge of this at all. I do feel bad for the restaurant. What is the restaurant supposed to do? Now the restaurant's getting all sorts of online hate and bad reviews as a result of being put in this situation where the vice president came in and wanted to have a couple of rolls or whatever the specialty is there.
Yeah, they probably don't do rolls if they're a Michelin star sushi restaurant, although maybe they do. Who knows?
It's a great story. The story of that restaurant is a great story that people, I think, would actually embrace. But I don't know. Now it's got the scarlet letters, JD.
I mean, I know nothing about it except my wife has been wanting to go for a while, and we haven't made our way down there. I did see some reports that they tried to turn JD and Usha Vance away, and were told by Secret Service that they couldn't. I don't know how that's possible, so I have a hard time actually believing that story. It was confirmed that they shut down at least parts of Adams Avenue for hours while this was happening. I saw another thing, I think it was yesterday morning, where they had visited Golden Bagel in Hillcrest, a place that I've been to. And so everyone who wanted to go in and get a bagel had to have the metal detector scanned and pat down the whole thing just to go get a bagel. I mean, look, this stuff has happened with presidents and vice presidents in the past. This led you and me down the wormhole last night to figure out, I didn't know this, that JD Vance's wife, Usha, is from Rancho Penasquitos, went to Mount Carmel High School. Her parents are both professors in local San Diego universities, so she's local. I could see why they would be here. I could see why they would be eating some of the food in San Diego. It's probably a very special place for her, and they probably spent the night, hanging out with her parents and her family. Good for them. But I have no issue with them being heckled as they go through life if they're going to continue treating the occupants of this country this way.
Do you think that's normal? I mean, do you think that that's every president pretty much everywhere? Going someplace and being heckled? Maybe not that profanely, but do you think that's every president everywhere that faces this sort of public? No.
I think it started with Trump. There was the whole story of Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who went to a restaurant in D.C. and she was basically told we won't serve you, and it became this whole national crisis of, oh, I'm just trying to live my life and they won't let me live my life. And I think Donald Trump has been an especially brutal president twice now. I think his administration is potentially creating atrocities of human rights violations and doing severe damage, long-term and short-term damage to the country's economy. And I think everyone
we have had previous presidents shot on the street, right? So,
You're talking about JFK or Reagan or...
I'm talking about Reagan. Yeah, I mean, it's not like they've all been received with rose petals.
Yeah. No,
maybe it's just because we live in the era of social media now where we get to hear this sort of stuff and hear this woman's voice. Go fuck yourself.
That woman, she was born with that voice. She didn't do anything to deserve that, but it is particularly shrill. I mean, also the environment of social media makes it so when JD Vance goes out to a sushi restaurant, all of a sudden dozens, if not hundreds of people are aware of it and will, converge there to mock him. That didn't exist in the past unless you were, an assassin trying to kill Ronald Reagan. So, I think social media has led to this. I don't know if Obama was heckled like this. I don't know if Biden was heckled like this, maybe, but I certainly didn't see it if it happened.
Yeah, I think I saw a clip recently because, as everybody tries to make point after point about immigration, that Obama was speaking once, and inside of some sort of town hall style auditorium, there was somebody who was heckling him pretty badly about, hey, you could stop this, you could stop this, you could put an end to deportations, all the sort of stuff. And it kind of carried on for a few minutes. So I don't know. I mean, it's just that had happened here in San Diego, I suppose, just gives it a different level. And what's happening in the state, and what's happening with the state and the government and other governments and other states, and, all the sort of stuff and all the back and forth about, how these tragedies are being treated differently seemingly in Texas than they were in California. I guess it all just paints the picture of our political climate, John, which certainly does have some storm clouds hanging over it, doesn't it? All right, I'm off to interview a couple of soccer players. So thank you, everybody, for subscribing. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and we'll do it again tomorrow.